Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 29, Agathodaemon Worship, Part 3, Abraxas, Abraxaster and Abraxoid Gems from the Gnostics and Their Remains, Ancient and Medieval by C.W. King. Part 3, Abraxas, Abraxaster and Abraxoid Gems, the Agathodaemon Worship. There was a time, says mere matter with much force, when it was from Judaism, especially from the Kabbala and the system of Philo, that people sought to derive the great transition of the human mind from the ancient into the modern world, a revolution in which so important a part is played by Gnosticism. So far as regards the explanation of the writings and the understanding of the views given by Origen, Irenæus and the other fathers upon Gnosticism, the Jewish element still retains its ancient preeminence. But in the case of the tangible monuments come down to us from the Gnostics themselves, we ought henceforth to be fully convinced that it is in the antiquities of Egypt we must look for our chief information. And if the ideas, terminology and symbols of Judaism, that is of the Kabbala, have lent certain doctrines to this system, yet it is Egyptian art that has furnished it with the greatest part of its symbols. This grand development of the old wisdom of Egypt in a new phase is the most conspicuously exhibited in that very numerous class of engraved gems, popularly and indiscriminately called Abraxas, Basilidan, and Gnostic stones, almost the sole production of the expiring glyptic art during the last 2 centuries of the Western Empire. But contrary to the generally received notion concerning their nature, a careful study of their numerous subdivisions has fully convinced me that only a very small minority amidst their multitude present any traces of the influence of Christian doctrines, being for the most part the fruit of religious ideas which had flourished long before the first dawn of Christianity. An important portion, indeed, originating in the primitive Egyptian mythology, have more connection with magic and medicine than with any religious object, and their employment as talismans establishes for them a higher antiquity than belongs to the real Abraxas gems, the date of whose origin is historically ascertained. The subject, therefore, will be more conveniently approached by considering in the first place the Agathodaemon, Chnupis or Chnef figures, often named Dracontia, and erroneously attributed to the Ophites and such-like semi-Christian sects as their actual inventors. It cannot, however, be denied that although these last-named sectaries did not invent this emblem, yet that they generally adopted it for their distinguishing badge, or, to use their technical word, seal. And this circumstance leads to a remark which, applying to all talismans alike, may aptly serve for preface to the following dissertation upon their several classes. In the primitive nature worship of the old world, all religion consisted in the deification of the great visible powers of the universe. The supreme beings therefore belonged to the present world. Consequently, all the blessings they could confer were limited to this life. The means of whatever kind supposed to secure the goodwill of these powers had for object tangible blessings alone: wealth, peace, long life, posterity. In fact, all those rewards promised by Moses to the obedient Israelites. The engraved stones under consideration, being legacies of this older religion, were designed to secure temporal, not spiritual benefits to the wearers. The latter were not even dreamed of by people holding the belief mors ultima linea rerum est. This fact explains why so many of the Gnostic gems are in reality no more than medicinal agents and prescribed by physicians, heathen and Christian alike, in their regular practice, from Nechepsos down to Alexander Trallianus. On the other hand, the true Gnostics, whose sole profession was the knowledge of the other world, when they applied to the doctrines of the ancient religion the same method of interpretation that the Kabbalists had used for Moses and the prophets, of which the Pistis Sophia has left us such ingenious specimens, subjected all the productions of the former creed to the same Procrustean torture, and consequently availed themselves of these same symbols, nay more, continued to manufacture them in their own sense of their import. The Agathodaemon, good genius, whose very name furnishes the reason why he should be chosen to figure on an ornament intended to defend its wearer from all disease and mischance, is depicted as a huge serpent having the head of a lion, surrounded by a crown of 7 or 12 rays, components conspicuously announcing that he is the embodiment of the idea of the sun god. This figure is usually accompanied either on obverse or reverse with its proper title, written variously as seen here, accordingly as the engraver fancied he could best master that difficulty to the Greek mouth, the true sound of our letter B. This name Salmasius considers as a rendering of the Coptic seen here gold, and hence explains another title which sometimes takes its place, seen here as all golden. He has treated the subject at some length in that learned miscellany of his, the treatise De Anno Climacterico. Jablonski, however, derives the word more plausibly from thus, good, and thus, spirit, and thus makes Agathodaemon to be the literal translation of the name. The prototype appears to have been that ancient figure of Atmon, the sun, designated as the serpent par eminence, and which was a winged serpent having human arms and feet. He is thus painted on mummy cases as guardian of the inmate. This last had become in the 3rd century the popular name for the hooded snake of Egypt. Lampridius has Heliogabalus Egyptius dracunculus Romae habuit, quos illi Agathodaemonas vocan. This kind was the Irenæus to be seen commonly on Egyptian monuments, where it is the badge of royalty placed upon the head of the sovereign. It is the Haji Hasha of the modern Arabs, the Cobra di Capello of the Hindus. I have met with a large sard engraved in the late Roman Egyptian style, with 2 imperial busts regardant. Reverse, the Chnupis serpent, with the legend in Roman letters Agathodaemon, the sole instance known to me of such an amulet with a Latin inscription, but which goes far to confirm Jablonski's interpretation of the Coptic title. In classical Greek, the original keneph becomes canopus, hence the canopic vase often appears between 2 serpents for heraldic supporters. But in those lower times, so fruitful in the Chnupis talismans, no more canopic vases appear on gems. The ancient Agathodaemon, in the form of his congener the cobra, still haunts the precincts of the Hindu temples, as of old the shrines of Isis, and issues from his hole at the sound of a fife to accept the oblation of milk from the attendant priest. As with the ancients, so with the Hindus, he is the special keeper of concealed treasure, and when a zemindar deposits his board in the prepared hiding place, he, to make assurance doubly sure, builds up a serpent therewith to watch over the gold. Suetonius records that Tiberius had a most appropriate pet in a serpens Draco. But having found it one day devoured by a swarm of ants, the suspicious Caesar took warning from its fate to beware of the force of a multitude of feeble individuals, and consequently secured his person against all danger of popular outbreak by shutting himself up in the inaccessible fastness of Capri. But to return to the type of the Agathodaemon upon our gems, over the 7 rays of the lion's crown, and corresponding to their points, stand often the 7 vowels of the Greek alphabet, seen here, testifying the 7 heavens, a mystery whereof notice shall be taken in the fitting place. The reverse of such gems is invariably occupied by a special symbol resembling the letter S or Z, thrice repeated, or the convolutions of a spiral cord, and traversed by a straight rod through their middle, a symbol for which many and the most whimsical explanations have been proposed. Of these, the most ingenious, but also the most fanciful, makes it represent the spinal marrow traversing the spine, certainly an apt device for a medicinal talisman. But whatever its primary meaning, it was probably imported in its present shape from India, that true fountainhead of Gnostic iconography. It is to be seen in 2 varieties upon series 16 and 17 in plate 7 of E. Thomas's admirable essay on the primitive coinage of India amongst the punch marks. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.